What happens when royal privilege collides with a daytime talk show host who refuses to play along? When a prince's sense of entitlement spirals so out of control that he forgets the cameras are rolling? In just 32 seconds, one comment would turn a routine interview into the most shocking meltdown British television has ever witnessed. But before we dive into this explosive confrontation, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now because we are pulling back the curtain on royalty's dark side, exposing entitled celebrities and their shocking behavior the cameras never showed you. We have got the raw footage they do not want you to see. And you will not want to miss a single reveal. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think about this outrageous behavior. Now, let me take you inside the studio that day. The Loose Women set was buzzing with its usual energy. Denise Welch sat at the panel table, calm and professional as always. She had interviewed hundreds of guests over the years. Politicians, actors, musicians, royals. Nothing ever seemed to rattle her. She was known for asking the tough questions while keeping things respectful. Today's guest was supposed to be a big get for the show. Prince Harry was making the rounds, promoting his latest venture, and the producers were thrilled to have him. The interview started like any other. Denise smiled warmly as Harry walked onto the set. The audience clapped. He waved, flashing that famous royal smile everyone knew so well. He sat down across from Denise and the other panelists, straightening his jacket and settling into his chair. "Welcome to Loose Women," Denise said, her voice friendly and welcoming. "Thank you so much for joining us today." "Thanks for having me," Harry replied, nodding at the panel. The first few questions were softballs. They talked about his recent projects, his charity work, the usual publicity tour talking points. Harry answered with practiced ease, throwing in a joke here and there. The audience laughed at all the right moments. Everything seemed perfectly fine, normal, routine. Then Denise decided to ask something a little more substantial. "You have spoken a lot about privacy over the years," she began, leaning forward slightly, "about wanting to protect your family from media intrusion. But you have also done numerous interviews, documentaries, even written a book. Some people find that a bit contradictory. How do you respond to that criticism?" The smile on Harry's face flickered, just for a second. But Denise noticed. "Well, Denise," he said, his tone shifting ever so slightly, "I think that is a bit of a misunderstanding of what privacy actually means." "How so?" Denise asked, keeping her voice measured and curious. Harry shifted in his seat. "Privacy is not about hiding away from the world. It is about controlling your own narrative, telling your own story instead of having it twisted by tabloids." "Right. But some would argue that you are still courting media attention," Denise pressed gently. "Just on your own terms." The other panelists glanced at each other. There was a tension building now. You could feel it. Harry's jaw tightened. "I think that is a very simplistic way of looking at it, Denise. With all due respect, you are not a member of the royal family. You do not understand what it is like to have your entire life dissected by strangers." Denise did not flinch. "You are absolutely right. I am not royal, but I am a journalist, and I have spent decades in the public eye. I do understand scrutiny, and I think our viewers would appreciate an honest answer about the apparent contradiction." "Apparent contradiction," Harry repeated, his voice dripping with sarcasm now. "Is that what we are calling it?" The audience went quiet. This was not the lighthearted chat they had expected. "I am just asking a question that many people have," Denise said calmly. "It is not an attack." Harry leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "It feels like an attack, Denise. It feels like you are trying to catch me out, like you are working for the same tabloids I have been fighting against my entire life." One of the other panelists tried to jump in, to lighten the mood, but Harry was not having it. No, let her finish," Harry said, holding up a hand. "I want to hear what other gotcha questions she has lined up." Denise took a breath. You could see her staying composed, professional. "Harry, I promise you, this is not about gotcha questions. This is about having a real conversation. Our viewers are smart. They notice things. And when someone campaigns for privacy but also maintains a very public profile, they wonder about that. That is all." "They wonder," Harry said mockingly. "Or you wonder." "I think it is a fair question," Denise replied. "Fair?" Harry scoffed. "Nothing about the way my family has been treated has been fair. Nothing about the way the media has hounded us has been fair. And now I come on your show, trying to do something positive, and you ambush me with this nonsense." The tension in the studio was thick now. The producers off camera were exchanging worried looks. This was going sideways fast. "I have not ambushed you," Denise said, her voice still steady. I asked you one question about a topic you yourself have spoken about publicly many times. The way you asked it was designed to make me look like a hypocrite." Harry shot back. "That was not my intention at all," Denise said. "Well, that is how it came across," Harry said. "Maybe you need to work on your interviewing skills." A few gasps came from the audience. "You do not insult a veteran journalist like Denise Welch on live television." "Not like that." Denise smiled thinly. "I have been doing this for over 20 years, Harry. I think my skills are just fine." "Could have fooled me," Harry muttered. Another panelist tried again to redirect. "Why do we not talk about your upcoming project instead? I heard it is really exciting." But Harry was locked in now. He was not letting this go. "No, I want to finish this," he said, "because I'm tired of being treated like this. I come on these shows, I try to be open and honest, and people like you," he pointed at Denise, "just want to tear me down." "I am not trying to tear you down," Denise said firmly. "I am trying to have a conversation." "By calling me a hypocrite," Harry said. "I never called you that," Denise replied. "I said some people find it contradictory. There is a difference." "Semantics," Harry said dismissively. Denise sat up straighter. "It is not semantics. It is accuracy. And if you are going to come on this show and accuse me of ambushing you, at least get your facts straight about what I actually said." Harry's face flushed red. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Denise said. "I have been nothing but respectful to you since you sat down. I asked you a legitimate question. You are the one who turned this into a confrontation." "Because you attacked me," Harry insisted. "I asked you a question," Denise repeated, slower this time. "That is literally my job." Harry stood up suddenly. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. The whole studio seemed to freeze. "This is ridiculous," he said. "I do not have to sit here and be disrespected like this." Denise remained seated, looking up at him calmly. "No one is disrespecting you, Harry. Please sit down and let us have a civil conversation." "Civil?" Harry laughed bitterly. "There is nothing civil about ambush journalism." "Oh, for goodness sake," Denise said, her patience finally wearing thin. "You are not being ambushed. You are being asked to explain your position. If you cannot handle that, maybe you should not be doing interviews." That was it. That was the line that sent Harry over the edge. "How dare you?" he said, his voice rising. "How dare you speak to me like that? Do you know who I am?" The audience was dead silent now. Everyone watching could feel how badly this was spiraling. Denise stood up too, facing him. "Yes, Harry, I know exactly who you are, and right now you are being incredibly rude to me and to everyone on this panel." "I am being rude?" Harry said incredulously. "You are the one attacking me on live television?" "I asked you one question," Denise said, enunciating each word. "One question that you did not like, and instead of answering it like an adult, you threw a tantrum." Harry's eyes widened. "A tantrum? You think this is a tantrum? You have no idea what I have been through, the pressure I have been under, the abuse my family has suffered, and I sympathize with that," Denise said. "I really do. But that does not give you the right to come on my show and treat me like garbage because I asked you something you found uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable?" Harry was nearly shouting now. "You tried to humiliate me." "I tried to interview you," Denise shot back. "There is a difference. And quite frankly, you are embarrassing yourself." Harry pointed a finger at her. "You do not get to talk to me like that." "Actually, I do," Denise said. "This is my show, and you are a guest. A guest who is being extremely disrespectful." "Unbelievable," Harry said, shaking his head. "Absolutely unbelievable. I came here in good faith." "So did I," Denise replied. "And you are the one who ruined it." Harry looked around at the other panelists, as if expecting them to back him up, but they all just stared back at him, uncomfortable and silent. "This is a setup," Harry said. "You all planned this. You wanted to make me look bad." "No one needed to make you look bad, Harry," Denise said quietly. "You are doing that all by yourself." Harry's face went from red to almost purple. "That is it. I am done. I am leaving." "Fine," Denise said. "Leave." Harry turned to walk off the set, but then he spun back around. "You know what your problem is, Denise?" he said. "I am sure you are going to tell me," she replied. "You are jealous?" Harry said. "You are a nobody who gets to sit behind that desk and pretend you are important. But you are not. You are just another talking head who will be forgotten in 5 years." The audience gasped again. This was beyond unprofessional now. This was personal. Denise did not even blink. "And you are a prince who thinks his title means he does not have to answer questions. Newsflash, Harry, your privilege does not work here." "Privilege?" Harry practically spat the word. "You do not know anything about my life. I know you are acting like a spoiled child right now, Denise said. Do not talk to me like I am a child, Harry warned. Then do not act like one, Denise fired back. Harry took a step toward her, not threatening exactly, but aggressive enough that one of the producers started moving onto the set. You need to leave, Denise said firmly. Right now. Oh, I am leaving, Harry said. Trust me, I would not stay on this trash show if you paid me. Good thing we already did then, Denise said coolly. That seemed to stun Harry into silence for a moment. Security, Denise called out, looking past Harry. Can you please escort our guest out? 2 security guards appeared at the edge of the set. Harry looked at them, then back at Denise. You are kicking me out? You said you were leaving, Denise reminded him. I'm just helping you find the exit. Harry's mouth opened and closed. He seemed genuinely shocked that this was happening. This is outrageous, he finally managed. What is outrageous is your behavior, Denise said. Now please go before you embarrass yourself any further. The security guards moved closer. Harry looked at them, then at Denise one more time. You are going to regret this, he said. I doubt that, Denise replied. Harry stared at her for a long moment, clearly trying to think of some devastating final comment, but nothing came. Instead, he just turned and stormed off the set, the security guards following behind him. The studio was completely silent for a few seconds. Then, slowly, the audience started to applaud. Quietly at first, then louder. They were applauding Denise. She sat back down, smoothed her hair, and turned to the camera. Well, she said, letting out a long breath. That was unexpected. The other panelists were still in shock, but they managed to nod. When we come back, Denise continued, her professional composure returning, we will talk about our next topic. Stay with us. The show cut to commercial, but everyone in the studio was buzzing. What had just happened? A member of the royal family had just been kicked off a daytime talk show for having a complete meltdown. During the commercial break, Denise just sat there, calm as ever. One of the producers rushed over. Are you okay? The producer asked. I am fine, Denise said. Is he gone? Yes, he left the building, the producer confirmed. Good, Denise said simply. When the show came back from commercial, Denise addressed what had happened briefly. I want to apologize to our viewers for that uncomfortable moment, she said. We always try to have respectful conversations on this show, even when we disagree. Unfortunately, that did not happen today, but we moved forward, and that was it. She did not bash Harry. She did not gloat. She just acknowledged what happened and moved on. Professional to the end. But let us go back to those 32 seconds, the moment that changed everything. When Denise asked that first real question about privacy and media attention, that was all it took. 32 seconds from a normal interview to a complete disaster. Because here's the thing about entitlement. It cannot handle being questioned. It cannot deal with being challenged. And when someone like Harry, who is used to deference and special treatment, suddenly gets asked to explain himself, the mask slips. Denise did not do anything wrong. She asked a fair question, a question that millions of people had been wondering about. And instead of answering it like a reasonable person, Harry chose to attack her, to insult her, to accuse her of things she did not do. He could have just said, I understand why some people see it that way, but here is my perspective. That is all it would have taken, a simple, mature response. But his ego would not let him do that. He had to make it about him being victimized, about Denise being out to get him. And when she did not back down, when she stood her ground and refused to be bullied, he completely lost it. Think about what he said to her. Do you know who I am? As if his title meant he was above being questioned. As if being born into royalty gave him the right to be rude to someone doing their job. Then he called her a nobody, tried to diminish her career and her accomplishments. Why? Because she had the audacity to ask him to clarify his position on something he himself had made a public issue. That is entitlement in its purest form. The belief that you are so special, so important, that normal rules do not apply to you, that people should just accept whatever you say without question. But Denise was not having it, and good for her. She stood up to him. She called out his behavior. She refused to be intimidated, and when he kept pushing, she did what needed to be done. She had him removed. Can you imagine the courage that took to kick a prince off your show on live television, knowing the backlash that might come? But she did it anyway because it was the right thing to do. That is what integrity looks like. That is what standing up for yourself looks like. And Harry? He revealed exactly who he is. Someone who talks a big game about being down to earth and relatable, but the second he faces any real pushback, he falls apart. He proved every criticism people have made about him being out of touch and hypocritical. The whole interaction was a masterclass in how not to handle media. If you are going to put yourself out there, if you are going to do interviews and write books and make documentaries, you have to be prepared to answer tough questions. You do not get to pick and choose only the softball questions. That is not how it works. Denise gave him every opportunity to have a real conversation. She was respectful. She was fair. And he threw it all back in her face. Let us talk about some of the specific things he said, because they were truly remarkable. When he accused her of working for the tabloids, that was insane. Denise Welch is a respected journalist who has been critical of tabloid culture for years. But because she asked him one question he did not like, suddenly she was the enemy. That is paranoid thinking. That is someone who sees attacks everywhere, even when they do not exist. When he said she needed to work on her interviewing skills, the sheer arrogance of that statement. He is lecturing a woman with decades of experience about how to do her job. What qualifies him to do that? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But his ego is so massive that he genuinely believed he knew better than her when he said this was a setup and they all planned to make him look bad. Again, paranoid and delusional. No one set him up. He walked into a standard interview situation and self-destructed. But rather than take responsibility for his own behavior, he had to create this conspiracy theory where everyone was out to get him. And finally, when he called her jealous and said she was a nobody who would be forgotten, that was just cruel. It was meant to hurt. It was meant to make her feel small, but it did not work because Denise is secure in who she is and what she has accomplished. All of those comments revealed a deeply insecure person, someone who cannot handle criticism, someone who lashes out when they feel threatened, someone who uses their status and privilege as a weapon. Compare that to how Denise handled herself. She never raised her voice unnecessarily. She never insulted him personally until he crossed major lines. She stayed focused on the actual issue, which was his refusal to answer a simple question. Even when he was calling her names and trying to belittle her, she kept her composure. She did not sink to his level. She maintained her dignity. That is strength. Real strength. Not the fake strength of someone who blusters and shouts and throws their weight around, but the quiet, steady strength of someone who knows their worth and does not need to prove it by tearing others down. Think about the other panelists too. They were clearly uncomfortable with how Harry was acting, but they did not know how to handle it. They tried to redirect, to smooth things over, but he was not interested. He wanted to fight, and Denise let him. She did not back down. She did not try to placate him. She stood her ground. That moment when she told him he was embarrassing himself, that was perfect, because he was. Everyone watching could see it. He was making a fool of himself on live television, and she just pointed out the obvious. His response was to get even more aggressive, to point his finger at her, to take that step toward her that made security start moving. That is when this went from an argument to something potentially dangerous. Because here's the thing. When someone is that worked up, that out of control, you do not know what they might do. Denise had every right to feel unsafe in that moment, and she handled it by immediately calling for security. She protected herself and her colleagues. She took control of a situation that was spiraling out of control. She did everything right. And Harry? He proved that when you scratch the surface of his carefully crafted public image, there is an entitled, angry person underneath. Someone who cannot handle being challenged. Someone who thinks the rules do not apply to them. The fact that his final words were, "You are going to regret this," tells you everything you need to know. That is a threat. A veiled threat, but a threat nonetheless. He was trying to intimidate her one last time. And her response? I doubt that. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. She was not scared of him. She was not worried about his threats or his connections or his title. She knew she had done the right thing, and she stood by it. After he left, the way she handled the return from commercial was also impressive. She did not spend the rest of the show talking about what happened. She did not bash him or try to justify herself extensively. She just acknowledged it briefly and moved on. That is class. That is professionalism. She could have milked it. She could have spent the rest of the episode talking about how badly he behaved. But she did not. She gave it the minimal amount of attention necessary and then got back to doing her job. Meanwhile, Harry stormed out of the building like a toddler who did not get his way. No apology, no acknowledgement that maybe he overreacted. Just anger and indignation that someone dared to question him. This whole incident raises bigger questions about celebrity culture and entitlement. about people who are famous thinking that fame makes them untouchable, about the way some public figures believe they can control every narrative and every conversation. But the truth is, you cannot. Once you step into that studio, once you sit down for that interview, you are agreeing to participate in a conversation, and conversations go both ways. The interviewer gets to ask questions, even uncomfortable ones, especially uncomfortable ones. If you only want to talk about things that make you look good, then do not do interviews. Put out press releases, but do not show up to a talk show and then act shocked when the host actually tries to have a substantive discussion. Harry wanted to have it both ways. He wanted the platform and the attention that comes with doing these interviews, but he also wanted complete control over what got asked and discussed. And when he realized he could not have that, he melted down. Denise represented something he could not manipulate. She was not going to fawn over him because of his title. She was not going to give him a pass because of his last name. She was going to treat him like any other guest, which meant asking real questions, and he could not handle that. His privilege had insulated him so much that he genuinely did not know how to deal with being treated like a normal person. That is what made this whole thing so revealing. In 32 seconds, we saw the real Harry, not the carefully managed public persona, but the actual person underneath. And it was not pretty. We saw someone who is used to getting his way, someone who expects deference and special treatment, someone who cannot cope when those expectations are not met. We also saw someone who is deeply angry. That rage was simmering just below the surface the whole time, and it only took one question for it to boil over. Compare that to Denise, who stayed calm even when being personally attacked, who maintained her professionalism even when being called names, who stood her ground without losing her temper. She showed what real grace under pressure looks like, what actual strength and confidence look like. This was not a case of a journalist ambushing a guest. This was a case of a guest having a complete breakdown when faced with a question he did not want to answer. And the most damning part, he could have recovered at any point. Even after his initial defensive reaction, he could have taken a breath and given a thoughtful answer, but his pride would not let him. He had to double down. He had to make it worse and worse until there was no coming back from it. That is what unchecked entitlement does. It does not let you admit when you are wrong. It does not let you back down or apologize. It just keeps pushing until everything falls apart. Denise gave him so many off-ramps, so many chances to reset and have a normal conversation, but he refused every single one because accepting any of them would have meant admitting he overreacted, and his ego could not handle that. So instead, he kept escalating until she had no choice but to have him removed. That is on him, not on her. She did not make him act that way. She did not force him to insult her or threaten her or storm off the set. Those were his choices, and they were terrible choices that revealed his true character. The audience knew it. That is why they applauded when he left. They recognized what had happened. They saw through his act. Denise did not need to say much after because her actions had spoken loud enough. She had stood up to someone who tried to bully her, and she won. Not because she was louder or meaner, but because she was right. This whole incident is going to be remembered, not because of who Harry is, but because of how spectacularly he failed, how completely he exposed himself. And it is going to be remembered because of how Denise handled it, with dignity, with strength, with class. She showed everyone watching that you do not have to accept bad behavior from anyone, no matter who they are or what their title is. You can stand up for yourself. You can set boundaries. You can demand respect, and if someone cannot give you that respect, you can show them the door. That is the real story here. Not that a prince had a meltdown, but that a journalist refused to be bullied and stood her ground. In those 32 seconds, everything changed. A routine interview became a defining moment, a moment that showed who these two people really are. Denise is someone with integrity, strength, and professionalism. Harry is someone with entitlement, anger, and an inability to handle criticism. The cameras captured it all. Every word, every expression, every moment of escalation. And now, everyone knows the truth. About what happens when privilege meets accountability. About what happens when someone who is used to special treatment does not get it. They fall apart. They reveal who they really are. And in this case, what we saw was not pretty, but it was honest, brutally, painfully honest. Denise did not set out to embarrass Harry. She set out to interview him. He embarrassed himself by refusing to engage like a mature adult. She asked the question. He chose how to respond, and his response told us everything we needed to know.